Good morning, students. Welcome to the subject of environmental science. Here we are dealing with unit number 4, that is all about disaster management. That is the first part that we are dealing, right? And the next B part, when we will see, that is EMS, that we will see it later. We have already started with the introduction to what is disaster management, right? These many content or these many things we are going to learn as far as this part is concerned. Meaning and definition, disaster mitigation, guidelines, need and planning with reference to these many natural disasters. That means we are going to study the natural disasters in each session, right? And how to mitigate it means how to overcome it, or how to take the steps to see that this the impact of this catastrophe, or maybe the natural calamity is lowest, right? So disaster mitigation અથવા disaster management પહેલા તો કોને કહેવાય? તો કે it is a system. એનું કામ શું છે? તો it means to minimize the negative impact of natural disaster. That means its purpose is to minimize the natural impact. જેટલી જે પણ ડિઝાસ્ટર થાય છે એની જે ઇમ્પેક્ટ છે એ મિનિમાઇઝ કરી શકાય, ઓછી કરી શકાય, એટલા માટે ડિઝાસ્ટર મિટિગેશન અથવા ડિઝાસ્ટર મેનેજમેન્ટ જેવી ટેકનિક અથવા ઓર્ગેનાઇઝેશન્સ કામ કરતી હોય છે. ઇટ ઇન્વોલ્વ સસ્ટેનેબલ એફર્ટ્સ ટુ રિડ્યુસ ડેન્જર ઓફ હ્યુમન લાઈફ એન્ડ રિકવર ધ પ્રોપર્ટી. What is its efforts? What are its actions? It always tries to see that the efforts is towards reducing the danger. Danger જે છે કોઈ પણ natural calamity, we cannot stop the natural calamity, but any impact છે, એની અસર છે, એને કેવી રીતે ઓછી કરી શકાય, હ્યુમન લાઈફને કેવી રીતે બચાવી શકાય, અને પ્રોપર્ટી છે એ કેવી રીતે રિકવર કરી શકાય, એ ખાસ ધ્યાનમાં લેવામાં આવતું હોય છે, રાઈટ? સો દેટ ઇઝ ઓલ અબાઉટ ડિઝાસ્ટર મિટિગેશન. દેન ઇટ્સ અ પ્રોએક્ટિવ એપ્રોચ. એટલે કોઈ પણ વસ્તુ થાય એ પછી આપણે એક્શન લઈએ તો એને રિએક્શન કહેવાય. આ પ્રોએક્ટિવલી કામ કરે છે. પહેલાં જ અમુક જ્યાં શક્ય હોય ત્યાં અમુક સ્ટેપ્સ લેવામાં આવે છે. વેર ઇટ ઇઝ નોટ પોસિબલ, દેન આફ્ટર ધ ડિઝાસ્ટર ઇઝ ધેર, સો મેની સ્ટેપ્સ આર ટેકન અપ to see that the impact on the human life can be reduced, right? Here are some of the guidelines for mitigation program. What is being done? It helps to ensure faster recovery after disaster impact. Again, it helps to protect the natural and cultural assets, and it helps to implement the hazards reduction faced by the affected people. That means these three things, they do it under the mitigation program. What do? They ensure that there is fast recovery, right? After the disaster impact. That means the recovery, maybe the loss can be recovered fast, right? Again, the cultural and natural assets can be saved, or can be preserved, or can be protected in the natural disaster. That is also one of the concern. Next is, it helps to implement the hazards reduction faced by the affected people. That means whatever the hazards are, whatever the dangers are, that can be reduced for all those who are affected, right? In today's session, in the previous section, we have seen the calamities like a cyclone and earthquake, right? Today we are going to check out with the floods. I wish that you should keep your text before you, so that whatever the content is being taught to you or being delivered from here, you can relate it with your text also, right? So floods is going to be the calamity today that we are going to deal, right? Floods is not a kind of calamity that we haven't heard about. Floods in the normal case, we know it as આપણે જેને પૂર કહેતા હોઈએ છીએ, રાઈટ? તો જે પૂર આવે છે એ શું છે? વોટ ઇઝ ફ્લડ્સ ઓલ અબાઉટ? દેટ વિલ બી ચેકિંગ, એન્ડ દેન વી શેલ ગો વિથ ધ ડિફરન્ટ એસ્પેક્ટ્સ રિલેટેડ ટુ ઇટ. સો flood means an overflow of a large amount of water beyond its normal limits, especially over what is normally dry land. Dry land ઉપર જ્યારે amount of water goes beyond the limit overflow થાય છે, ત્યારે એને floods કહેવાય છે. A flood is thus an overflow of water that submerges land which is usually dry. અને ફ્લડની એક ખાસિયત શું છે કે એ ઓવરફ્લોઈંગ વોટર છે એને આપણે ફ્લડ કહેતા હોઈએ છીએ, અને એ આજુબાજુનું જે લેન્ડ છે, આજુબાજુની ડ્રાય લેન્ડ છે એને સબમર્જ, એને ડૂબાડી દે છે વિથ ધ ઓવરફ્લોઈંગ વોટર. That situation is known as the situation of flood, right? A general and a temporary condition of partial or complete inundation of normally dry land areas from over of inland or tidal water from the unusual and rapid accumulation of runoff of the surface water from any source. This is the definition given by the Wikipedia, right? That wherein every condition temporary હોઈ શકે અથવા general condition હોઈ શકે, wherein complete અથવા partial થોડું અથવા આખું જે લેન્ડ છે એ આવા પાણીથી કવર થઈ જતું હોય છે, રાઈટ. અને દેર ઇઝ અ રેપિડ એક્યુમ્યુલેશન, ખૂબ બધું પાણી એક જગ્યાએ ભરાઈ જાય છે, મે બી ટાઇડલ વોટર્સ પણ હોઈ શકે, રાઈટ. એવી રીતે પાણી છલકાઈને ભરાઈ જાય છે ઓન ધ સરફેસ એરિયા ઓર સરફેસ લેન્ડ નિયર ધ water bodies is known as flood, right? Again, as you can see it on the slide, the little bit of explanation has been given. Flooding may occur as an overflow of water from the water bodies such as maybe rivers, lakes or oceans in which the water overtops or breaks leaves, resulting in some of that water escaping its usual boundaries, or it may occur due to an accumulation of rainwater on saturated ground in an aerial flood. That means wherever the overflow of water is there, maybe from any of the water bodies, or it may be the outflow of the water to any of the dry land nearby, that is what is known as the floods, right? While the size of the lake or other body of water will vary with the seasonal changes in the precipitation and snow melt. That means sometimes it may happen that in a rainy season, because of too much of rain, the water bodies, because it cannot contain it, that means there is water flow or maybe overflow of the water, right? Or there may be in the case of there is much of the snow melt, and because of that there is significant flow of water, so and that drowns the or submerges the land also. Many a times it gives the effect to the property or maybe the animals living in the nearby area. So flood often cause great damages to the homes and to the businesses if they are in the natural flood plains of the rivers, while channel flood damage can be eliminated by moving away from the rivers. Definitely if it is a natural flood, then nobody can just escape it. It may be a great damage to the businesses or maybe the homes, the animals and the people affected by the flood. But when it is a riverine kind of flood, that means the channels which are artificially made by the manpower for irrigation or any other purpose, if they are overflowing, then that can be eliminated or that can be stopped by moving away from the rivers. And when you remove those channels from the nearby rivers, you can eliminate the risk, right? This was all about floods. When we come to the next part of it, that means what causes this flood, then as you can see it in your text also, it may be because of rains, it may be because of the river overflow, it may be because of the dam breaking, it may be because of the melting of ice and snow, right? These things occur. So it may be because of these reasons that even during the strong winds around the coastal area may cause the flood. Let us go with the rains there. Sometimes heavy rains in a short period of time, right? You must have heard that within 24 hours it was like say 30 to 35 or 18 to 20 inches of rainwater, or there was a rainfall, and that creates the flood like condition, right? So in a short period of time when there is heavy rains, it damages the drainage system, and it results into flood, right? In other cases, light rains on many days can also cause flood. Again, if it is a heavy rain for short period may cause flood, and the rain that may be for a continuous period of time, may be a light rain but it is for a continuous period of time, that may even cause the flood situation, right? Second cause is river overflow. When there is more water upstream then the regular content of the river or whatever it can hold, beyond that, if there is the water flow, then it overflows downstream to the plains, and there will be a river overflow and water gets into the land. This is how it happens, that when there is more upstream, right, that means more water coming from to the rivers, maybe because of any of the reasons, then it may that those water flow or those that which overflows, that comes to the ground. And this is how, when the water holding capacity of the river gets exhausted, whatever the extra water is, it definitely comes to the land plains, right? Third one is strong winds around the coastal area. Heavy winds and hurricanes surrounding the coastal areas carries the sea water and can cause the flood many a times. It may also lead to heavy rains. Naturally, when the coastal area, with the help of strong winds, carry this sea water, then it creates the flood-like situation. The effect of tsunami also creates the flood as the sea water flows inland, that means comes to the dry area or the area around and causes massive damage. So flood is a really critical situation for the country like India. We have seen in almost every season that some or the other area in the country gets flooded, right? The next reason, that is fourth one, which is said to be dam breaking. When the dam construction gets broken up, then many a times we see that there is situation like flood, right? So dams are man-made structures to store the water flowing down from the highland, and it can be also used to generate electricity by say developing the water power plant nearby the dam area, right? Sometimes heavy storage of water in such kind of dam may cause the breakage in the dam, and then maybe overflow to the nearby area. In other cases, excess water is intentionally released. Many a times the dam is about to overflow, and at that time the excess water is being released to the say plain area, and many times because of that also the flood may be caused. The greatest example or the known example of flood and that too in a dam breaking situation is that of the Morbi dam, that is Machu dam failure is considered as a worst dam burst in the Guinness Books of World Record. You must be knowing about this. It's an old accident and which took place somewhere in the city of Morbi because of the Machu dam getting broken up, and that caused a lot of say hazards and dangers, and it has caused a lot of property and life loss during that particular calamity, right? So that was because of the dam breaking. So that's and it is considered to be the worst dam burst and has been noted as one of the worst dam burst in the Guinness Book of Records also. Coming up to the next, it is melting of the ice and snow. This is also one of the reason. In the cold regions like Himalayas, during winters, what happens is there is heavy snow on mountains which with the ice on them. Now what happens is sometimes the ice starts melting when the temperature rises high, right? This will result into heavy flow of the water to the dry place, and this is how the snow melt flood can also be caused, right? So that these are the 5 reasons through which the floods can be caused. It may be due to the natural rains, it may be due to the river overflow, it may be due to the on the coastal areas because of the wind carrying the coastal winds, right? It may be because of the dam breaking, it may be because of the melting of the ice and snow. So here what we have checked out are the causes that causes the flood, or the events, or maybe those type of situation that causes the flood. Now what we are going to check out are some of the types of floods. Okay, there are typical types of floods. We will be quickly going through the types of floods. When we talk about the floods, the first flood is surge flood. That means that is caused at the coastal area. It occurs in the coastal area of the sea or large structure of open water. It is the result of extreme tidal conditions caused by the critical weather, and it occurs when the high winds from the hurricanes and other storms push the water on the shore and creates the threat to the tropical or threat of tropical storm. Now what is this type of flood? Surge flood is such a kind of flood which occurs at the coastal region generally. This happens because of the high tidal conditions, right? There is high tides, and because of that what happens is it forces the water to flow to the, it pushes the water on the shore. That means કિનારા ઉપર પાણીને ફેંકે છે, અને it creates the threat of even storms. So storms at times, વાવાઝોડું પણ at times, or maybe the condition of storm is also created because of such kind of surge flood. There are 3 levels of coastal flooding. In the minor level, no major damage is there, right? In the major level, a large beach erosion may be there. That means ધોવાઈ જાય છે આખો જે શોર છે, જે કિનારો છે એ ધોવાઈ જાય છે, right? And many structures gets damaged. And in the moderate level, some beach erosion may be there and damage will occur to lower extent as compared to the higher level, right? So there can be 3 levels of surge flood. Generally surge flood, what you have to remember is it is occurring at the coastal regions, right? Next coming up is the second types, which is known as river flood, which is also known as fluvial, right? It occurs when there is heavy rainfall over a period of time which causes the river to exceed beyond its capacity. That means જે river ની પોતાની capacity હોય water holding ની, એનાથી beyond જ્યારે રેઇનફોલ થાય અને એનાથી પાણી હોલ્ડ કરવાની જે કેપેસિટી છે એના કરતાં પાણીનું લેવલ વધી જાય ત્યારે ડેફિનેટલી there may be a kind of say river flood, right? The other cause may be because of the snow melt also, and because of that the water level increases, and that may increase the water level of the river, which forces it to turn up into flood. The damage can be widespread as overflow affects other nearby small rivers also, and it causes even the breaking of the dams, and many times those river water comes to the villages nearby or maybe the areas nearby and cause a great damage, right? Again, when we are talking about the river flood, there may be 2 categories: overbank flooding and flash flooding. Now what is this overbank flooding? Overbank flooding occurs when there is overflow of a river. It may be a small it may be of a small stream or huge rivers. And flash flooding occurs when there is intense or high velocity torrent of water occurs in an extreme existing river channel, right? It is very critical and destructive as compared to overbank flooding due to high water force and hurting the debris often swept off in the flow. That means it creates a lot of danger and it creates a lot of destruction as compared to overbank. Overbank is what occurs when there is overflow of a river. It may not be that dangerous, but when it comes to flash flooding, right, it may be because of the high velocity of the torrent of high velocity torrent of water. That means the velocity of the water, that means the speed of the water is very high during the flash flooding and may cause lot many problems or the damage to the property or maybe the life of the people living around. Next, third type comes up is known as surface flood, which we known as fluvial. That was fluvial, it is fluvial, right? What happens here? It occurs when heavy rainfall creates a flood event independent of an overflow water body. It can happen in any urban areas, even higher elevation areas that lie above the coastal or and river flood areas. That means this is surface flood is such a kind of flood that occurs because of the heavy rainfall, and heavy rainfall can be there in any region. So not necessary that the region has to be near the water bodies, right? It may be beyond that also. but its main purpose or the main reason is rainfall, right? That is creating the flood like situation. There are mainly two types, again intense rain saturates and urban drainage system. What happens, many a times there is a heavy rainfall, and in the and that stucks up the urban drainage system, and that because of that the floods may be there, and runoff of the flowing water from the rain falling or hillsides that are unable to absorb the water. So many a times what happens is there is a water flowing system which cannot be stopped, and that cannot be absorbed by the land, and what happens is there is flood like situation on the surface area. So it can be caused by the factors like natural, ecological, and anthropogenic factors. Anthropogenic means man-made, right? So heavy rainfalls heavy rain flows in the rivers can be considered as a major cause of flood. Now we know this, and in addition to that, even the human activities, maybe like say deforestation or shifting of the agricultural cultivation, may also contribute to the flood. It occurs sometimes as an after effect at the time of cyclones. Even after cyclones, the floods may be considered or may have been experienced. India and Bangladesh are the most flood affected countries in the world. In India particularly, area in the states like say UP, West Bengal, and Bihar, where the nearby rivers are Ganga and Brahmaputra, suffers from such kind of flood impacts, right? Even as per one of the studies, that 20% of the rainwater can be stored in the dams, reservoirs, etc., while 80% of water flows through the rivers and ultimately goes into the sea. So it is reoccurring process. By these analysis, an increasing percentage of rainfall can be noticed, releasing too much of water into in the form of floods have been noticed in the past, right? So this is how the flood occurs, and we have seen the types also. Now what we are going to see are the mitigations. Mitigations means flood કદાચ આવી ગયું, ફ્લડને અટકાવી નથી શકાતું, પણ એની ઇમ્પેક્ટને મિટિગેશન મેજર્સ દ્વારા ઓછી કરી શકાય છે. તો કઈ રીતે આપણે મિટિગેટ કરી શકીએ આ પરિસ્થિતિને? હાઉ કેન વી મેક ધ things work well, or maybe the impact can be lowered? Then in that case, it is the first thing that is structural mitigation measures, and the second is non-structural. Structural means what can be done by the men to avoid the impact. Mind you, floods cannot be avoided, but its impact can be, right? So reservoirs can be constructed so that the rainfall water may be stored there on a regular basis, and heavy flood water flows and passes there, that those reservoirs can be constructed. Next is prevention of overbanking, spilling by the construction of embankments and flood walls. That means many a times flood walls can be constructed near the banks of the rivers or water reservoirs to avoid the impact of flood. Third one is there can be improvement of flow condition in the channel. Even in the channel you can improve the flood condition, or maybe the flow condition can be regulated, with the help of which the overflowing of the water can be managed. Next comes up is if there is improved drainage system, then also the flood condition can be to an extent avoided or can be reduced. These are all considered to be structural. Structural એટલા માટે કે આપણે એને ઊભું કરી શકીએ છીએ, right? On the other hand, non-structural measures, what can be done? Then it includes preparation of flood proofing, flood planing, zoning by flood plains management. That means beforehand we are taking care that flood proofing can be there, some kind of zones can be created, flood plains can be created by flood plain management. Next, maintaining the wetlands means more the wetlands are managed, or more the forests are there on the coastal area, that it holds water and that can avoid flood to an extent. Warning and flood forecasting services may be there, so that whenever it is going to occur, at least those areas can be evacuated, right? Disaster management may be there, post disaster relief programs may be there, public health measures can be taken up, and even the awareness programs can be there, right? So these are the non-structural measures that can be taken up, and structural mitigation measures are also there for the floods. Mumbai flood that occurred in 2006 can never be forgotten by any person. It was a terrible situation during the day, right? As in the financial capital of the country, Mumbai had failed greatly, and there was a great loss to public transportation, private vehicles, telecom services, transport services were stopped, right? But it was the spirit of Mumbai people that helped them to again regain and go back to the normal conditions, right? Casualties, that means the death were more, and many people lost their belongings also. Many affected areas were Andheri, Daisar, Goregaon, etc., and this flood created a great loss to these particular areas, right? Mumbai faces the problems due to unstable weather on one hand, and carelessness of the people regarding the wasting of the natural resources on the other hand. Even the improper drainage system results into such kind of floods and its results, right? So that's the end of flood. When we move on to the next area, it is considered to be the next calamity, which is known as storm. We are going to study storm here, and then we will go with the types and the preventive measures that can be taken up, right? When we want to study about storm, according to the definition given by Cambridge Dictionary, it is an extreme weather condition with very strong wind, heavy rain, and thunder and lightning. This is the condition. Stormy shoe conditions, so there can be heavy rains, right? There may be strong wind blowing, and there can be thunder and lightning. That condition is known as the storm condition. It means very critical disturbances there in the atmosphere as far as the weather is concerned. Generally strong winds blow, as I told you. There may be usually rainfall, thunders may be, thundering may be there, lightning may be there, or even can be a kind of snowfall, right? As you can see it here, according to the definition given by the Wikipedia, that means a storm is any disturbance, disturbed state of an environment or in an astronomical body's atmosphere, especially affecting its surface and strongly implying severe weather. It may be marked with by the disturbances to the normal conditions such as strong wind, tornadoes, hail, thunders and lightnings, right? Heavy rainfall may be there, heavy freezing rain, ice storm may be there. There may be a strong winds like a tropical cyclone, or windstorms may be there, or even the wind transporting some substance through the atmosphere, as in the dust storm, blizzards, or maybe sandstorm. Such kind of extreme condition is considered to be the storm, right? Storms have the potential, storms are very harmful and has got the power to harm the lives and the property, because storms surge into heavy rainfalls or snow causing flooding conditions. It may be lightning continuously, right? There it may result into wildfires also, and it may even have a lot of wind blowing, right? So system with significant rainfall and duration help elevate drought in the places they move through. Heavy snowfall can allow special reactional activities to take place which would not be possible otherwise, thus such as skiing or snow mobiling. Yes, even many a times there may be heavy snowfall and storms may be created, and all the recreational activities have to be stopped at that time, right? So it's a extreme kind of condition with heavy wind blowing, heavy rains, and there may be constant thunders and lightning, right? Again, if we talk about storms, then we can say that there are types of storms like blizzards, hailstorm, Derecho storms, flooding, snowstorms, tropical storms, hurricanes, thunderstorm, ice storm, tornadoes, lightning, etc. Right? All these types have been explained with their intensity, means the intensity and the way it flows or it blows. It has been given the different names, right? As far as these types are concerned, depending upon the type and how it is intense, the mitigation program may be there. And now what we are going to study are about the preventive measures, right? If it is a stormy weather or if the storm occurs, then what preventive measures can be taken up? Then we can prepare an emergency kit for it. Maybe it includes minimum 3 days food, water, batteries, radio, flashlights, lanterns. Some basic requirement may be there in the kit, so that person or the community may survive. Next is prepare a practice plan for the family. Every family member should know about the location of emergency kit, fire alarm, etc. should be there, so they are made aware about it. Again, maintain trees and big plants in your compounds or nearby roads. So what happens is remove weak branches and cut the trees that could damage your homes during a storm. So we have to maintain the trees and the big plants, because during the storm it may create the destruction to the house or maybe the properties around. Fourth step that can be taken up is continuously we need to remain in touch with the weather updates, so that regularly whatever the weather updates are, we are aware about it, and we can remain safe with the help of these being telecasted or maybe broadcasted through radio or television. Right. Next comes up is to identify escape routes from your home, and needed tools like a rope, ladder, etc. can be there. So whenever required, whenever required we can escape from the homes, right? Can use the rope and ladder and such kind of things, so that we can save our lives. That can be done. We can make the proper arrangement for the furniture, can stay away from the doors and windows when storm strikes, and keeping all the doors and windows closed, so that we can prevent the damage to a greater extent in the internal part of the homes. So these are the normal preventive measures that can be taken during the storms. So what we have seen today are the two natural calamities, the floods and its types we have seen, and how we can prevent it, or we can take the measures. And the next is storm, when it occurs, what it causes, and what type of preventive measures. We have seen the types also in short. The types are given quite in proper form and in detail in your text. You can go through the types of storms and what we can do to prevent the effect of storms that we have seen in the last part. So that's the end of this particular session. When we meet next, we'll be again checking out with the two more natural calamities. Till we meet next, it's a goodbye from my side. Take care of yourselves, and when we meet next for the next disaster, please keep your texts with you, so that we can relate it better. Thank you for now. Meet you soon.